School of, yeah. Aniket is there?
Yeah, Aniket is
Yeah.
doing it.
So
He'll be the
10:33.
one, I
Yeah,
think.
it is started.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the school prayer and the Gayatri Mantra. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. Om Bhuvasvaha. Om Tatsaviturvarenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. Dhiyo Yo Nः Prachodayat. Om Bhuvasvaha. Om Tatsaviturvarenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. Dhiyo Yo Nः Prachodayat. Om Bhuvasvaha. Om Tatsaviturvarenyam. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतङ्गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Binaji, before going to the 20th one,
Yeah.
we thought of taking up 15.
Yes. Yes.
15 is a very important this thing which we have discussed, but I would like to go into it because last time our Janaki Ramji had asked for it.
Right.
See, this is one of those slokas which has left a very lasting impression on me over the past half a century. As a boy, when I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, and the 20th chapter is one of the chapters which is normally we are asked to learn it by heart. And it is easier also. It is only 20 verses. So, as youngsters, we used to feel enthusiastic because 20 verses learn it, and now you know one chapter of Bhagavad Gita. You have that kind of pride that you know one chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and Bhakti Yoga is an interesting thing, and that's how. So, but this particular verse, whenever I recite it or read about it, the depth of it. Yasman dvijate lopo lokanno dvijate chayah. Harshamarsh bhayodvegair yas vegair mukto yas me priyaha. See, from whom the world does not shrink or get agitated. Does that person shrink away or cause any agitation to anybody in the world? Lokaha means the world at large, and also Lokaha refers to an individual also. See, any action that flows from limitation causes some aberration, some agitation in the whole of human consciousness. This is a very important thing one has to remember. It's very, very subtle and very important. Every action, every word, every thought, everything that proceeds from limitation is bound to cause some form of agitation. And it will also be subject to agitation. So it is mutual. The agitation means you are increasing the heartbeat of the world and the heartbeat of the individual. Udvega means, Vega means speed. This is imbalance, there is a serious disturbance created. See, that is why there is a constant world. The people, the more the limiters, the more the active, greater will be the total sum of agitation and disturbance created in the whole human consciousness. Now, how can one be in a state of being, in a state of consciousness, which totally eliminates this two-way flow of agitation or disturbance? There's a two-way flow, as I said. We agitate the world and we get agitated by the world. So, that is possible only one who has crossed all limitations. One who is totally one with the universal consciousness. Because, see, traditionally, the beautiful example that is given is the waves are not the ocean. Though the waves are a part of the ocean, the bubbles are a part of the ocean, the surf is a part of the ocean, but none of these things constitute the ocean per se. I hope you are able to get this subtle point. Suppose if there were no waves, does it mean that the ocean is not there? No, the ocean is there. Suppose there are no ripples, no bubbles, no surf. Does it mean that the ocean is not there? The ocean is there. And it is very deep also. So, all these agitations are like these waves, ripples, bubbles and surf and whatnot, which is on the superfluous level. Because our consciousness, normal mental consciousness is at a superfluous level, we always see the waves only. We always see the bubbles. We always see the ripples. And we think that this is ocean. The whole of the samsara means that which is endless and continuously goes on. Samsritihi means that which goes on and on. Sara means to move, to creep, to, like the movement of a snake. So samsara means that which is in constant movement, endless movement, which is also compared to the ocean. Samsara Sagara. What is it? It is without disturbance, there cannot be any movement. Without the waves, you cannot identify the ocean also sometimes. The ocean is known through the huge waves that hit the shore and the huge noise and disturbance it creates. So anything that flows out of limitation is bound to cause disturbance, and that too two-way disturbance. You agitate the world and the world will agitate. So this is going on and on and on and on endlessly in a loop. So what will happen? Only degeneration will happen. In spite of any amount of worldly development from the point of view of technology or science or our understanding of nature and all that, the overall well-being of humanity is going down, down, down and down. It is always degenerating. In thermodynamics, we have the law of entropy. The law of thermodynamics says that the entropy of the world is ever increasing. What is this entropy? Entropy is that property of losing energy and going down, degenerating, decaying, falling apart. The beauty is that in biological systems, this operates the other way. All physical systems, you leave a table just like that in a closed room for 3-4 years, what happens? It becomes powder. Because the forces of nature, the air, the moisture, the creatures, by the worms and what do you call as all kinds of things over a period of time eat away and then it falls apart. So unless things are in good use and properly maintained, nothing remains as it is. So everything requires maintenance. Your body requires maintenance, your house requires maintenance, your car requires maintenance. Even if you are not using it, you have to clean it. During the pandemic, the car manufacturers are advising, see, please put some blocks at the tires. So please switch on and operate it for at least 5 or 10 minutes every 3-4 days. Because the systemic defect is there where it is going to degenerate. But when it comes to living beings, the law of entropy gets reversed from the point of view of life. In this sense, an amoeba becomes a human being. Life becomes more and more complex as it grows, as it evolves. And this complexity is primarily for the purpose of increasing the ability of that living creature to manifest consciousness more and more. So that is why human being is considered to be the pinnacle of evolution, because here you find a creature through whom consciousness manifests to the maximum extent possible. It's not the end of it. See, that's why from animal human being to human being to divine human being, this evolution has to happen. But unfortunately, two things which are diametrically opposite to each other are brought. This is the Leela. This is the beauty of creation. An element which is decaying is brought in contact with something which is eternal, something which is always evolving and growing. There the conflict comes. The human body with all its systems, the emotions, the mind, the various koshas, the various shariras, with all that is the constitution of that element is always limited is always decaying, is always progressively dying. In this, something which is very precious, very timeless and eternal aspect of it has been brought into context. The whole tamasha is now there in front of us. Come on, go on getting into conflict and problems, contradictions, conflicts. All this arises because the inherent system is not understood by us. The moment you understand the system, then you separate out this aspect of the limitation of the body, the embodiment, and the source of that life principle, the consciousness operating through this. Then all your problems are resolved once for all. They are all, in fact, not even resolved, they are all dissolved. There is nothing to solve or resolve. It's completely dissolved. That is what he is referring to here when he says, Yasman no dvijate loko, lokan no dvijate chayaha. From him the world does not shrink or get agitated, nor does he get agitated by the world. And he is not disturbed in any manner. Harsha, marsha, bhayodvegaihi muktaha. Harsha, a sort of elation, excitement, feeling pleasurable, happy. Amarsha is that sense of jealousy, envy, intolerance. Adi Shankara calls Amarsha as Asahishnuta. Asahishnuta is there, that state of intolerance or impatience. Bhaya, fear. Udvega, agitation. One who is free of all these things. These are only for the sake of an illustrative list of 3 or 4 items are given here just to show that he is free from all these things. Muktaha. Harsha, Varsha, Bhayodvegair Muktaha. Yes, such a me priyaha. Such a man is dear to me. I have already explained this aspect of dear to me, dear to me. There is no favoritism here. There is no favoritism. The whole point is you can approach that reality only when you are free of this. There is no barrier. You are the barrier. I am the barrier. Nobody is preventing you from anything. It is my own limitation. See, that is why they have observed nature so closely and given us beautiful examples of a silkworm, which is called as a koshakrit. What does it do? It remains itself and weaves threads and threads, fine threads, thousands and thousands of threads around itself and ties itself up into a knot, into knots, and inside, sitting inside. It can't come out. It can never come out. You take all these things, put them in hot water, boil it, and make it into a kanjivaram sari. Or you allow it to die, the threads get broken. Did anybody else do it? It produced from within itself that material for the thread and tied itself up in knots. That is precisely what we do also. Nothing external is binding us. That is why from an Advaitic point of view, they say you are already free. The only problem is you don't know. Your natural state of being is free. You don't know because you have tied up yourself in knots. So this is the aspect which has to be recognized, because any action, as I said, which is emanating out of limitation, That is from our body, from our emotions, from our thoughts, from our feelings, which are by definition limited. So anything that comes out of that limitation is bound to cause agitation only. They said you don't do anything, absolutely don't do anything. You are causing agitation. In fact, very interestingly, Sri Ramana Maharshi was asked. That was the time when India was, we didn't get independence, political independence, the so-called political independence. Then huge, there was so much of turmoil in the country, so many agitations, so many movements. Then the Second World War, everything was going on, but he was absolutely peacefully in the on the hilltop at Arunachala, and he was sitting there. Somebody asked him, "Sir, there is so much of turmoil, so much of suffering. Millions are dying, and you are sitting here doing nothing." Then Ramana Maharshi asked him, "How do you know that I am not doing anything? What does doing something mean? Doing something means going on satyagraha, non-cooperation, fasting like Gandhi. What do you mean by not doing anything? How do you know? At what level I am doing? You don't even know. At what level of consciousness he is functioning, who is said to be always in a state of sahaja samadhi. So because out of our limitation, we think that this only is action. This is the only way to act, which unfortunately only creates more and more and more and more conflict. See, this is one of the reasons why it has been suggested that you withdraw from the world. You have to withdraw your senses like the limbs of a tortoise. Repeatedly, Adi Shankara says that a liberated individual, his contact with the world is minimal. His only contact is to keep his body alive, whatever is required. Minimum amount of air, minimum amount of water, minimum amount of food. His only purpose is to keep the body alive because of its own karma. Not that he carries his burden with great enthusiasm like we do. That is why Sri Krishna advises Laghvashi, Vivikta Sevi. Laghvashi, eat minimum, very limited quantity of food. And Vivikta Sevi, go and be at a place exclusive, withdraw from this, because anything I do, I am only causing damage. I am creating more and more agitation both ways. I am getting agitated and I am causing agitation. This is the basic idea and concept of withdrawing from the worldly actions. Unfortunately, has been misinterpreted as irresponsibility or shirking one's worldly responsibilities and going away. You will know when to give up also. When you look at your own life very closely, when I look at my own life, when I closely look at it, I will know. The more sensitive I become, I will know that my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, my words, my actions are causing agitation. So that is the crux of this whole thing. That is the reason why, see, the coming to another point also, the Bhagavad Gita talks about three things. About action, inaction and wrong action. Karma, akarma and vikarma. One who sees action in inaction and inaction in action, that confusion is also resolved when you understand the nature of this limitation. And he goes to the other extent also, and Naishkarmya. Naishkarmya is another aspect that is brought out into the whole discussion, the last chapter almost. You see the beauty of it. So any action which leads to further increase in one's own karma and bondage has to be understood and shunned, completely given up. Just give me 1 second. I'd like to read out that aspect of Naishkarmya brought about by in the commentary of Annie Besant. Give me a minute's time. Yeah. Naishkarmya does not mean absence of action. The word for that is akarma, which is what is used in the 2nd chapter. And the 3rd, 2nd, 3rd, 4th chapter, all these chapters have this term akarma. As the word for bad, wrong or unlawful action is vikarma or dushkarma or kukarma. As I said, karma, akarma and vikarma. Vikarma is wrong action. Akarma is absence of action. Karma is action. Now what is Naishkarmya? Please note this very carefully. It's a very important thing. Naishkarmya means the absence of only such action as creates new bonds, new debts and assets, new soul ties of passion. Action which repays debts, cancels assets, undoes ties is included in Naishkarmya. You understand the point now? See the beauty of it. This is the beauty of somebody who is highly evolved bringing out this interpretation. So that is what is called in the Bhagavad Gita as Naishkarmya Siddhi. So every action is leading to clearing of your debts, clearing of your bondage, cancelling all assets. Please remember all assets, all those things to which you are attached. All your ties, all your bondages, whether it is wife or husband or son or daughter or granddaughter, grandson, whatever friendship, whatever relationship has to be understood in the right perspective. It is not a question of indifference or carelessness. It is that aspect of great love and compassion which is all inclusive. So a person about whom this verse number 15 is talking is about a person who has attained Naishkarmya Siddhi, who has attained Naishkarmya. Siddhi itself means attainment. So you see why sadhana is so closely associated with our everyday life. Everyday life. The moment I get up, why even if I don't get up, even if I am in sleep, 24 by 7 by 365 by number of years we live, every moment has to be recognized as an element of sadhana. That is where Viveka comes. Is my action creating new bonds, new ties, new assets, new debts, new soul ties of passion? Or is it a case of repaying the debts, cancelling the assets, undoing the ties? Which is it? If it is the former, there is absolutely no progress. If it is the latter, then only there can be progress. So why is it that we don't evolve? Why is it that we don't get liberated? It's not that somebody else is creating hurdles for us. It's our own inner nature, innate nature. What is happening is we are taking 2 steps forward and 10 steps backward. And then after some time realize, well, where did I start and where am I now? You have started somewhere 10 miles ahead and you are 10 miles behind now. All your sadhana has come to nothing. Now see the beauty of it. So all kinds of thoughts about my being free, now I am of a matured age, now I am free, I have completed my worldly responsibility. Nothing, all that is a big farce. All that is a big farce. All that is a big farce. Nothing has happened. Jiddu Krishnamurti used to say, why do we make so much noise about young men, young people, youngsters, young future? Nonsense, all nonsense, because when I am young, I am a young fool. When I become old, I become an old fool. That's all. Nothing has happened. My foolishness has remained with me, or in fact, it has crystallized and become much more problematic now. Because old fellows are all with crystallized ideas, with fixed notions. Nothing will change, sir. Absolutely nothing will change unless every moment to moment, I observe. That's where my discernment has to come. That's where my viveka has to operate. Now you see how dangerous this whole game is. We see the fallacy of our dramabazi that is going on. One needs to be ruthlessly honest with oneself, brutally honest with oneself. That unfortunately every day I am retrograde, going backward and not progressing in any manner. Do I realize the truth of it? And we are so enamored by this life, by this limitation. We invest so much of time, effort, whatnot in this kind of limitation. And what can happen? Tuck. One may die anytime. Then what happens to all these? That is the reason why they said you die every minute of your life. Don't wait for your physical death. Die every moment of your life too, psychologically, emotionally, mentally. Then, as I say, I am fond of mentioning that Zen koan, documents where the Zen master advises his disciple to contemplate. And one of the koan says, if you die when you don't die, you will not die when you die. That is the whole thing. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad very clearly says, without knowing this imperishable thing, if you die, you will be a miserable wretch. Yova etadaksharam gargye aviditva praiti sa krupanaha. He who dies without knowing this akshara, this imperishable truth, he is a kripana. The Bhagavad Gita in the first chapter itself, he says, Karpanya dosho doshaha. I am in a confused, bewildered state. I am in a miserable state. I am unable to think properly. I am unable to judge anything properly. That's what Arjuna says, Karpanya dosha. So we will continue to remain as Kripanas for any number of lives. It doesn't matter, past life, future lives, the presence or absence or truth of it has no meaning to us because we have made a mess of our existing life. Why do we bother about past lives, future lives and all that nonsense which we don't know anything about? It's all hearsay. Somebody has said something about future life, past life, samskaras, vasanas and nonsense. All that is only hearsay. It's only bookish knowledge. But look at our own present life. We have made a miserable mess. We have made a veritable mess of this whole thing. That is the danger. That is the seriousness. That is the, lack of sensitivity in us. That is the lack of urgency. We are neither sensitive nor we have that intensity nor the urgency for change, for transformation. On the other hand, please remember, when the world in which we are living in a spatio-temporal world, when things are progressing, like the corporate saying that even if you want to stay where you are from a corporate point of view in this competitive world, you have to keep running like on a treadmill. On a treadmill, do you go anywhere? You don't go anywhere. But when the treadmill is moving, can you stand stationary there? No. So you, even to be where you are in this world, you have to keep running. If you stop, you fall back. Adom vai mrutyumiti bravimi. The Sanat Sujatiya is another beautiful thing. See, in Mahabharata, 5 great jewels are given to us. They are called as the Pancharatnas of the Mahabharata. The Yaksha Prashnas, the questions of the Yaksha, that's a separate thing. Vidura Niti, Vidura, the wisdom imparted by Vidura. Then Sanat Sujatiya. After where Vidura stops, Sanat Sujata comes and gives it in the Udyoga Parva. The Sanat Sujatiya is the 3rd jewel. The 4th is the Bhagavad Gita, and the 5th is the Vishnu Sahasranama. These are the 5 jewels of the Mahabharata. Adi Shankara wrote a commentary on the Bhagavad Gita and the Vishnu Sahasranama also. You see, this is a cultural heritage where we need to understand the depth of it. Without understanding and distorting and twisting it and misleading and misinforming, we are lost. A culture is only as good as its people are. Because if you and I do not uphold the culture, do not understand the culture, do not live the culture, it will degenerate. यूनान मिश्र रोमा सब मिट गए जहां से बाकी मगर है अब भी नामो निशा हमारा कुछ बात है कि हस्ती मिटती नहीं हमारी सारे जहां से अच्छा he has very clearly said where is that Greek culture, where is that Egyptian culture, where is that Babylonian culture, where is that Roman culture? But this here is a living culture which is the culture of humanity. It is non-sectarian. It is non-geographical. So this is unless we come to this very carefully, understand this implication of it, there cannot be any sadhana. Janaki Ramji?
Yes, thank you
Yes,
very
sir.
much. Very detailed
You understand now
insights and
what is this agitation? You asked about this agitation.
yes, yes. Only thing I wanted you to also relate, as I mentioned, Aurobindo was going in a, what do you call, he got going astray by getting into involvement with freedom struggle.
Yes,
And then how he was brought back to this line.
yes. So he had to escape the British, and he landed in French territory of Pondicherry. Then he realized that this is not the way. Political struggle has no meaning. Political struggle has no meaning at all. That can't be called as freedom. What we attained is see, you just replaced one crook with another crook. That's what happens also. That's what happens also, because it is flowing out of that limitation, flowing out of that ignorance.
Thing is, already Gandhi has been chosen by the divinity as the leader. Why
No,
others should also, instead of
no, no,
supporting
no,
him?
no, 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 no. See, it's not individual. It is collective. No, it is collective, and each one will contribute in his own way and cause further confusion also. He'll cause further confusion also. There were millions of people who differed with Gandhi. There were so many people. See that we need not get into that discussion at all. But the point is, once you see a higher truth, your priority will change. Political freedom and a struggle for political freedom is a lower aspect of the truth. Once you see a greater truth, the lower will get lesser priority in your own eyes, in your own perception. That is the point. Okay, sir? And I remember you raised some other question also.
No, another thought is about really the purpose of life is also to cultivate and enrich the mind.
Yeah,
Because
coming to
mind
that,
is going to go with you.
no, that also needs to be understood from a deeper perspective. See, both the terms have to be understood very carefully. There is nothing like cultivating the mind, because cultivating the mind only means removing the weed. When we do cultivation, what do? We till the land. We clear it of all debris, all weeds, all stones, all those things which are useless from the point of view of creating a good field for the growth of a crop which you want. Right? So, cultivation from a mental point of view only refers to purification. Only refers to purification. That's the only way to cultivate the mind. The mind is a very beautiful instrument which is thoroughly misused. So, how to make it as a pristine, pure, beautiful instrument which is available to you is through purification. What does purification means? Purification means progressively understanding the nature of the indulgences of the mind in the senses and the sense objects. Progressively, we are entangled in the senses and the sense objects, and the pleasure we derive from the senses and the sense objects, which causes problem. This is very clearly given in the Bhagavad Gita again. Dhyayato vishayan pumsa sangasteshu upajayate. You go on thinking about sense objects, you get attached to them. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. From that attachment is born desire. And from that desire is born anger, because even if your desire is fulfilled, you are unhappy because you want more of it. Because you don't get more of it, you are more frustrated. So you are one way or the other, anger is the result of it. Kamat krodho vijayate. Krodhat bhavati sammohana. When you are in a state of agitated mind with anger, you are deluded. When you are deluded, all your knowledge becomes useless. Sammoha smriti vibhramaha. Smriti bhramshat buddhi nasha. Once all your learning is lost, your faculty of discrimination is gone. Buddhi nashat pranashyati. So this sequence is the mind able to see very, very, very clearly. Then what happens? It will not indulge in the activities of the sense objects and the senses. That is the purification process. Then what happens? Then it gets attached to Viveka. We had a very good teacher when we were young. I am talking about 1980s. When we used to have our study classes, we had a gentleman called Achanta Suryanarayana Murthy. He gave us a beautiful analogy about the nature of the mind. He says, mind per se cannot operate independently. It has to lean on one side or the other side. On the one side is kama or desire bound activity. On the other side is the discriminative activity. So there is this kama manas or buddhi manas. When this manas is attached to kama, it becomes kama manas. When the kama part of it, when you understand the nature of this desire and drop it, it cannot sustain independently. It will automatically lean on to the other side of buddhi. So this transformation of kama manas to buddhi manas is the enriching. The enrichment comes through the dropping of the influence of desires and the enrichment through discrimination, because discrimination only leads to your ability to see things clearly without distortion, transparently. What is it? It is vairagya. Raga means color. Viraga means without color. Vairagya means that state of being which is totally transparent. So Viveka leads to Vairagya. That's how the sadhana chatushtaya is given. The beautiful sequence of sadhana chatushtaya is Viveka, Vairagya, Shat-sampatti and Mumukshutva.
Sir, will you please explain that Vairagya meaning, sir, again?
As I said, Vairagya, Raga means color, madam. Our vision is colored by desire. When you remove that, eliminate that aspect of desire, eliminating is not through suppression or forcing it out or anything. Eliminating by understanding the nature of the desire. The nature of the desire is to drag one deeper and deeper and deeper into itself. So viraga means without color. What does without color mean? Absolutely no color, white, totally transparent. So that sense of being totally transparent is vairagya. That means you are no longer influenced by the colored desires, the various shades of desires that are operating through the senses. In the yogic philosophy, it is called as pratyahara. Withdrawing oneself into oneself. The direction from outward, you take a 180 degrees turn and turn it inwards. So you see, the viveka leads to vairagya. Automatically, it is a natural consequence of viveka. You need not separately cultivate viveka and separately cultivate vairagya and all that. The moment the influence of desires and the pernicious consequences of that desire are dropped, you are attached to vairagya. You are leaning on viveka. You are allowing space for that viveka to operate. And that viveka is something which has to operate every moment of our life. It is not a one-time affair. Not a one-time affair at all. Every moment of our life, every thought, every action, every word, every feeling, every emotion has to be examined thoroughly and observed. Swadhyaya. That is what is implied in that. So these two words, cultivation and enriching, have to be understood in the sense of purification and allowing that viveka to operate instead of the influence of kama or the influence of the sense objects and the senses. That's why the Kathopanishad gives a beautiful explanation about the Atma being the owner of the chariot, the Manas being the charioteer, the horses being the senses, and the reins being the controlling aspects of it. A beautiful illustration is given. But any illustration has its own limitation. We can't go on dragging that example to extremes. But the whole thing is to imply that this is what happens. The owner of the chariot, the Atman, should direct the Manas. The Manas should direct the horses. The horses should be controlled through the reins. So you have to understand this whole process, then only it is possible to eliminate. Eliminate in the sense you are not through, they no longer affect you. It's as simple as that. Yes, sir?
Are brilliant, and particularly remember kama manas to buddhi manas.
Yes.
That is the
yes.
basic.
That's what I'm saying. I am very grateful
Very nice.
to that gentleman.
And one more
was,
thing I had asked, if it is relevant, you can think of discussing, or you can take at a later time. See, we are in the time-space, anyway, we are within the time-space dimension.
Right.
So if the creation, the example given is, if the creation happened 1 year ago, humanity has been there only for a fraction of a second.
Correct.
So this is mind-boggling.
Correct. See, that's what I'm saying. It is, we don't even know the immensity of the other. Jiddu Krishnamurti used to call it as the other and the immense. See, we miss out on the vastness of life being stuck in a corner, small, insignificant, atomic or even subatomic size corner. We are stuck and we are missing the vastness of life. That is the Maya. That is the influence of the limitation that in which we are stuck. We can discuss this further also, but do we understand this?
Vastness and our limitation is a new perspective. Thank you so much.
Right, sir. Any further questions, Madam Binaji? You wanted to remind me something? Yeah, there was. Yeah, you are mute. You are on mute.
We haven't even come up to Dharma, so we can save that for next time. But
yes.
yeah, but what I wanted to, we were talking one day and you talked about the locker, so I wanted you to just
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Yes, I remember now. See, we were discussing about what we call as effort and grace.
Yes.
So I remembered a beautiful WhatsApp message which I received from somebody about he's talking to a Chaat Bhandar fellow who has a cart of these things selling Chaat Bhandar, pani puri, cutlet, ragda patties and all that. So this man had started a discussion with him. He said, you have been running this chart bandar for so long, and what is the, you have been putting so much of effort in this, but did you have the grace of God also? Then that chart bandar fellow gave such a beautiful reply. He asked this person, "Sir, do you have a bank locker?" The man says, "Yes, I have bank locker." So how do you open a bank locker, sir? He says, "Yeah, I have to go to the bank. I have a key and the branch manager has a key. Only when both the keys are put and operated simultaneously, then only the locker opens. I can close the locker on my own, but I cannot open it unless the branch manager is there." Then this man said, "Exactly the same, sir. Your key is like effort. The branch manager's key is like God's grace. During the working hours, the branch manager is available to you fully. Whenever you go, he will allow you to operate the locker. Now here we have a God who is available to us 24/7. He is always ready with his key. If I do not go with my key called as effort, then even God cannot help you. Even God cannot help you. So you have to have both the things. He is always ready. Whereas I am not ready. I am not going to the right place. I am not doing the right thing. I am not putting the right kind of effort and expecting the grace of God, which will never happen. You see the problem point. So you have to operate it that way. So effort and grace go together always, and that too, not all effort and any effort. It is the right effort at the right time, right place. So everything has to be right in order for that grace to descend. See, again, coming to Professor Ravi Ravindra, he makes a beautiful statement in the Bhagavad Gita, the commentary which he has written. He says, without Sri Krishna, Arjuna cannot win the war. And without Arjuna, Sri Krishna will not win the war. Here is the effort and the grace. Without the grace, Arjuna can never win the war. And without the effort, if not Arjuna, somebody else. See, Arjuna is Nimitta Matra. As Adi Shankara says in his commentary, Sri Krishna makes him only a mere occasion because he was available there. He made him a Nimitta Matra to give out the Bhagavad Gita. That's why he says in the Vishwarupa Darshana, saying that all these fellows are already killed in the spiritual realm. You have to only kill them in the physical realm. I can do it without you. Because if not you, I will use somebody else. You are being given opportunity to partake in this Dharma Yuddha. This war is for restoring and re-establishing Dharma. So you see the beauty of it. So very interesting. This locker example, I found it so fascinating. And that to see, wisdom is nobody's grandfather's property, sir. A fellow can also give you wisdom in his own way. I incidentally remember, by one personal experience I am telling you, I was going in an auto rickshaw. Normally I have a conversation with the auto driver. I'll find out what he is, what he does, and all that. And in one such conversation, the fellow made an interesting comment and said, "Sir, money is like the footwear you wear. It's like your chappal." I said, "You are comparing money to chappal?" He said, "Yes, sir. See, if your chappal is of a smaller size, can you walk? No. If your chappal is of a bigger size than your foot, can you walk? In either case, it's a problem. So you should have the right size of the chappal. So right amount of wealth, right amount of money only will allow you to walk properly. More of it or less of it, you are into trouble only. An interesting perception. So see, one's own understanding comes from one's own observation of life. So thank you for reminding me, Binaji, about that locker key example, beautiful example. It's something worthwhile remembering that we have to have the right kind of effort at the right time, at the right place, in the right manner to allow that grace to descend.
Correct.
It is always there.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Any other question? Umesh ji, Sukan Goenka ji, Meena Nirula ji, Ramchandran ji.
Sir ji, namaskar.
Namaskar, Ramchandran ji.
Just 2 lines of verse 15, what you have said is very profound.
Yes, sir.
And I just wanted to tell that just before the class, I was hurriedly to bath and no time to breakfast.
Oh, sorry.
And I take it late. And so I was rushing out of bathroom with a towel. And immediately my wife says, don't put it on the chair. Now, her conversation is always that I'm going to put it on the chair. And I always tell her, I'm not a child. I won't do it. But I could not say that with, see, our mind is so much agitated. And then I came up and then before the class, I looked at Buddha's face for 2 minutes, calm down, and then attend the class. Why I'm saying this, I have already predetermined that I will not respond. But exactly I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So the world will agitate you and you will agitate the world simultaneously, unknowingly.
No, sir, I was determined to respond, not to agitate, but still I did the same thing.
No, it will happen, sir. It will. Very interesting example. Yeah, it happens with everybody. Because see, the unfortunate the responsibility of the housewife is to keep things clean, and it is our duty to mess it up.
Yeah, true.
It's our responsibility to mess it up. So and when this goes on for decades, then things get crystallized. That's why Krishnamurti said, you don't know your wife, you don't know your husband, because we are only operating through images.
That's
Your
true.
wife has predetermined that this fellow is bound to put the wet towel on the chair.
Yes.
So I have to caution him before he does it. Even
But
though
I
you
could
might
help
have
it.
decided, not to put on the chair, because of that statement, it will agitate you.
Yes.
And especially when you have decided not to put it on the chair, you will get more agitated. I have already decided not to put, why are you reminding me and all that?
Yes, that's same. But see, the point is, sir, I thought over this earlier occasion. I said next time I will not get agitated. But exactly I did the same.
That will happen, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Sarangi
a
ji.
small addendum to this.
Yeah.
After you cool down, the other person starts moving with a microscope
Yes.
to find out the faults which you have created and all that.
Yes. So.
And it becomes a habit to clean yourself, and you become
So,
you
sir,
get into perfection.
we should be extremely happy, especially for men. This is not for the ladies. For men, I am telling you, we are so fortunate that we have a guru right in our life throughout. The wife is a guru. And see, there is a joke. somebody went to a Swamiji and asked, Sir, I am. You always talk about self-examination and all. But when I started self-examination, I am not able to know my faults. What should I do? Then he said, very simple, my dear sir. Just go and say something to your wife against her family. Within 10 minutes, she will tell you all your million faults. One small agitation, she will give you a million faults of yours. So you need not go anywhere outside. Your wife will tell you what all faults you have. Self-examination.
And the present state is there is no agitation.
Yes.
It is a healthy reaction. It is a laugh, a small internal smile.
Sir,
Yes, I am improving. And let it continue. It's going on better actually. So agitation is finished.
Yes.
And from that side also the microscope has been left.
No, the microscope will become much more electron microscope. Doesn't matter.
It has become that.
It's a question of going to higher and higher equilibrium, sir. At this level you are agitated, you have calmed down. So next level you are agitated. Then so it's a continuous process. It doesn't matter.
Prayasa and patience.
Yes.
Dharya. Both are required, and this thing will get over this.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Umesh ji.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Good to hear your voice.
I want to refer it to what you mentioned about the grace.
Yeah.
I understood that you said the efforts and the grace are simultaneous. It's two wheels of the same chariot.
Right.
But correct me if my understanding, the grace is always available, and the effort is to undo your whatever.
Yeah. Yes.
You have to, instead of engaging yourself in doing, you have to engage yourself in not doing and remain silent observer and
yes. See that effort, as we say, effort. As I said, I put it this way. I said, right kind of time, right kind of place, all have to be right. In the sense that, unfortunately, the mind always thinks in terms of effort, meaning doing something. But the Indic culture is, you actually require more effort to not do anything, to be silent. So I am talking about that effort also.
Okay.
Because we are always, outward flowing. See, the movement is outward, and the mind can only think in terms of thought, feelings, actions, words, and only in that dimension it will be able to operate. But if I withdraw from all those things, it feels suffocated. That suffocation is like somebody closing your nose. So that also is a part of effort. When I say effort, that is the beauty again. Coming to the Bhagavad Gita itself, he says one should know karma, akarma, and vikarma, and one should know what is action in inaction and inaction in action. That discrimination is important. Only then you have right kind of effort or right kind of effortlessness, if you want to put it the other way around.
There is one more point. Can I ask?
Yes,
concerning
please.
Vishwaswarupa, when Arjuna sees the Vishwaswarupa, it described that the brightness of that Swarupa was like 1,000 sun.
Yeah.
Now, and then with that 1,000 sun light, he is able to see all of them are being rushed into his mouth, etc.
Yeah.
So the question is, was he granted a vision that he could face that kind of light of thousand sun and still
Yes,
see the
that is
details
what.
of all?
That's what he says. No, you cannot see with this eyes. I am giving you Jnana Chakshu, he says. Sri Krishna says, you cannot see with your normal eyes what I am about to show you. So you have to see only through your Jnana Chakshu. I am giving you that eyes of that wisdom, eyes of that awareness of a higher dimension. So that only then you will be able to see. Otherwise you won't be able to see.
But in the childhood time,
Ah.
when he was still playing at home with mother, and he opens his mouth and mother sees the entire
Yes.
manifestation in his mouth, entire cosmos is in mouth.
Yes, yes, that was also through not an ordinary vision.
So she was granted a vision to see it.
That yeah. He tried to play a small game with his mother. Oh, you want to see the mud which I am eating? Okay, I will show you what all I am capable of putting in my mouth. So you see, the Jnana Chakshu are given to him. Divyam dadami te chakshuhu. Pashyame yogam aishwaram, he says in chapter 11, verse number 8. Divyam chakshu, divya chakshu. I am giving you the divine eye. Only then you can see my yogam aishwaram. You can see the sovereign yoga in me. So it is not ordinary vision. Temporarily it was granted to him. Because it was temporary, he could not withstand it.
So that Vishwaswarupa is equal to Ishvara?
It is beyond that.
Because
it is beyond that. See, the description, don't go by the description. It is that tremendous source of energy which he has seen. He has gone to the very source of that energy of all creation. The description is only for the lay person to understand that all these things are there with 1,000 heads, 1,000 mouths, 1,000 this and all that. And that is only the descriptive part of it. It's not the description. It is the experience part of it which he had. The experience was that he could see the very source of all manifestation of that supreme being.
Yeah.
Okay, sir?
Thank you, sir.
Sarji,
yes.
Ravi Ravindra gave a beautiful insights in the last discussion on Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
And you put a question also. I don't know if it is useful to others. I think we can spend 2 minutes if you wish.
Yeah, the Naishjnana.
Yes, Naishjnana, correct.
Yeah, he is fond of coining certain terms. From Naishkarmya, he had coined a term called Naishjnana. Naishjnana is not ignorance. Naishjnana means it's not ignorance. It is that sense of not knowing. Ignorance is a limitation. Not knowing is being open to know.
Okay.
And that's why he says in his beautiful this thing, he says, not knowing is you are open to being surprised at every moment.
Yes, he said that. Yes.
You are opening yourself up to be surprised. Suppose you know the secret, you know the surprise, it's already known, then there won't be any surprise, no?
Correct.
So he terms that as Naishjnana.
Naishjnana.
It is that ability to be surprised. Being in a state of not knowing is not equivalent to being in a state of ignorance. Yes,
it's like
innocence.
A childlike, the innocence.
In fact, there is a beautiful 16th century book which he refers to, which is by an anonymous author called The Cloud of Unknowing. You can Google this, Janaki Ramji. You can also Google it. The Cloud of Unknowing is a classic, is a
I have read that. book, you suggested long.
Earlier, The Cloud of Unknowing. Statements are made in that book. And the author is anonymous. Nobody knows who the exact author is. It is a 16th century. He relates it to in Sutras. That's a different subject by itself. So, see, he says the world below is the thing and go beyond it. That's what is unknowing is. Okay? Yeah. Okay, sir. Thank you. Shall we close? It's already 11:49. Anybody else? Sumanji? Sheikh Sanawar Bashaji? Anybody? Meena Nirulaji? If there is no further this thing, we will.
Thank you, sir. Everything was so beautifully explained. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we will close with the Loka Samastaha. Thank you. Next, hopefully in the next week, we will be able to complete the 20th verse and complete this chapter. We will next week we will close it, because that last verse is also very important and we need to go into it. This is what Aurobindo says is the crux or the key for the remaining 6 chapters. This key is given in the 12th chapter for the remaining 6 chapters, 13 to 18, where he talks about that Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. He talks about that. So thank you so much. We'll close with the Loka Samastaha. Om Swasti Prajabhya Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahishaha Gobrahmanebhya Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Tat Sat Brahma Pranamastu. Om Sri Krishna Pranamastu. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Krishnapani ji.
Thank you.
So everybody will meet again on Friday, 10:30, and we'll finish the Dharma. I think we're going to concentrate on Dharma, right?
Right. We'll come to that aspect of it.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Krishnapani ji. Very nice today.
Thank you so much, Krishnapani ji. Thank you so much.
Krishnapani ji.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patamal ji, Meena Nirula ji.
Thank you, Krishnapani ji.
Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful today.
Thank you.
सच्ची beautiful. बहुत मजा आया.
Thank you, madam.